Today we're going to be talking about starting the process of setting up your Salesforce. And when an organization starts this process, I generally recommend that we zoom way out and think about what are the inputs and outputs that your organization needs from its CRM system. So what do I mean by inputs and outputs? Inputs are the things that you're going to be entering into the database. What type of information do you need to be typing in or have somebody on your team type in so that the information is stored there? For instance, let's say you run a major annual gala and you want to enter all of the donations and the donor information for all of that event, whether it was fiscal donation, in-kind donation, auction purchase, that kind of stuff. You're going to have to type all of that into Salesforce. And then we think about outputs. What do you want Salesforce to put back out to you and when? And here a lot of times we think about reports. At the end of the month, you might want a report for all of the donors and donations that have come in for that month. You might want a report for everybody who's participated in your programming. Those are the types of outputs that we think about. And how often do you want those? A lot of that can be automated as long as you're really clear up front about what it is you need. So once your organization gets clear on inputs and outputs, then it's time to actually think about the Salesforce part of this. So when you think about Salesforce, there's a couple of things to know. One is we start really broad. We start with what Salesforce calls objects. And objects are the big pieces to your data puzzle. They're things like contacts, accounts, opportunities, which is what Salesforce calls donations, campaigns, which are things like events or fundraising campaigns. These types of objects are really important for you to identify how they relate to your organization. Are all of your donors getting entered as contacts, or are they getting entered perhaps as leads if they haven't donated yet? Are you tracking participants as contacts? Are you separating out household accounts from business accounts? All of these are really important questions to ask. And then once you know what objects you're going to be mapping to your organization's real life actions, then it's time to start thinking about what they call record types in Salesforce. So every object can have multiple record types. So under the opportunities object, you might have a record type for major donations. You might have a record type for in-kind donations. You might also have a record type for grants. All of those are different record types. And those are important because they help you segment all of the objects so that they're a little more understandable for your team and for your reports especially. And then once you understand your objects and your record types, you go one step deeper and you start thinking about the actual fields that you want to track for each of those record types and objects. So for your contacts, whether they're donors, whether they're participants, whoever they are, you're probably going to want a first name, a last name, a phone, an email for all of them. Then you have to ask, do I want an address for all of them? What else do you need to know? If you're working with volunteers, maybe you need to track what skills they have as volunteers, but you might not need to track skills for your donors. So identifying which fields you need for each of those record types makes a really clear path for actually going in and setting these up. And then one of the last pieces to think about it at this intro stage is really kind of what they call page layouts in Salesforce. And that's for each record type on an object, which fields get displayed. And the real magic of page layouts is that they help you cut the noise so that you only enter the data that matters for each of those records. So if you don't need volunteer skills on your donors, you would make a donor page layout that doesn't show any of the volunteer stuff. And you might show a volunteer page layout that doesn't show any of the donation stuff. Depends on how your organization decides to set those up. So that's thinking about the basics of setting up your CRM. Now, of course, this can be really helpful time to hire a consultant, somebody like Greater Impact maybe, or somebody else to help you with what's called data modeling. That's what this process is we're modeling what your data looks like in real life, and then how do we map that onto your Salesforce CRM system. So start going through the process yourself, and if you get stuck, reach out, schedule a call. We'd be happy to talk with you about it. That's all I've got for today. Keep up the great work and keep having a greater impact in the world.